Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. We have a treat for you tonight. I'm so glad you're taking this opportunity to watch tonight's show. It's such an honor, as always, to have everyone participating on the show, whether that's our guests or people that's watching, because we're all here to learn. And we're definitely going to learn tonight specifically for the men as we talk about the mystery of dating. And today we're here with our special guest, Shelia Brittsan. And it's such an honor to have you on the show tonight.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Henry.
You know, you had posted something not too long ago that really touched me in regards to dating and men. And
hmm
so I remember reaching out to you saying I think we should do like a show about this because this is very important. You know, when you think of the word, that word mystery just pretty much means something that's hard to comfort, that's difficult to understand or to comprehend. And if most men that are watching tonight, if they were honest, um, sometimes it can be difficult to knowing how to navigate not only throughout life but in the dating world, um, and also as it relates to as and I'm sure you're going to talk about this, those who are men who may be looking for someone or have a desire to be with someone in a relationship, but they just don't know how to go about doing that. So I'm really glad that you're on tonight to talk about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yield the floor to you, and I'll ask questions. We'll probably go back and forth, and I'm excited to have you on the show. So at this time, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Henry. I'm really excited to be here and talk about this. Um, I'm a certified life coach and have been for some years, but I'm also a spirit-filled believer. And unfortunately, like many of us in this time and age, I've been married and divorced a couple of times, and so about 3 years ago, I found myself single once again. I was engaged. I had a 3.5 year relationship, and that ended because the Lord was calling me into more and to return home. I'd been living in Mexico for 8 years, and He just really called me back home to my state of Montana. And I really just saw such a need in my experience in trying to find a qualified man to date. So we often in our society when we're young, we just find someone we're attracted to. We're not taught how to date, how to courtship, how what we're even wanting or even knowing who we are. So those are the basic foundations. Number one, know yourself. And number two, know what you're looking for. And so I just found that men, and especially I found a big discrepancy between the rural areas and the city. And men being self-aware and knowledgeable, like on dating profiles, you're supposed to say, a little introduction about yourself. And it was surprising the number of men that were like, oh, I don't know what to say here. They didn't even know who they were. So if we don't know ourselves, how much less can we know what we're looking for? Because marriage is a marrying of two people. And so it's, as most of us have found out by experience, it takes a lot more than physical and chemical attraction. We all want that chemistry and the fireworks and the romance, and those are necessary. But there needs to be a solid foundation of number one, spirituality. You need to be equally matched. You should not be, dating a non-believer if you're a believer, because it's going to run into some friction, or your beliefs are going to come so watered down to avoid friction. And number two, there's many different personalities. There's 16 personalities. Life is hard. Life is going to throw a lot at us. So let's find somebody that we're equally yoked at, because you're not going to get along easily with every personality type. Like, I'm very relaxed, and I can just, like, I had a friend call me Cammy, and I said, "Why do you call me that?" And she goes, "Well, you're like a chameleon," because I could just, go with the flow where I was at. But yeah, in marriage, you just want to be able to be really your real self. And when you are equally yoked with somebody, you not only get to be able to be your real self, but you should also call each other up higher. And so I just, saw, man, there's really a need for this. And so I'm like, maybe I'll do a coaching program for men. And it was born just out of need that I saw. So, but then the Lord came in and he just started giving me revelation about the spiritual aspect and that he was behind that. And when I first started doing it, and I wanted it to be definitely a Christian spirit filled. So it's not just coaching, or it's going to be more, I would say, coaching and mentoring. So I can give men some insight as a mature woman, from a mature woman's point of view, and also the practical of life coaching of, we need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own emotions. And then I want to be able, because I'm quite insightful, and in talking with people, the Lord will reveal things about that person that they may not know. And I really want to call up the masculinity in men. So it's just a merging of everything. And I give men confidence. And confidence comes from knowledge, really. If we walk into a situation that we're unfamiliar with, none of us really feel confident. But when we have the tools to walk into a situation or a job or whatever, we have confidence. And so I want men to have confidence in the dating. I want them to walk in with some tools and raise them up in their masculinity. So that kind of, in a nutshell, is my desire, what I want to see happen with this. And in the background, the bigger picture is God is raising up a healthy bride of Christ. The church hasn't been spiritually healthy. There's been pockets here and there, but there's been a lot of disunity. And so in coming together as healthy couples, and then healthy couples should want to fellowship and have other healthy couples around them. And we shouldn't isolate ourselves from the world, because that's where the harvest is. So, but as couples are healthy, then it creates a healthy community, which then a community creates a body, because we're all different members, yet one body.
Well, I think that's amazing. I like what you was talking about earlier about how you were kind of exploring your options on the dating apps out there. You said some of the men out there didn't even bother in the introduction section to put, who they are, what they do. Why? I was just thinking about this. I know myself that that's important. I'm not like dating now, but if I was on a dating site, I would know like naturally, like I feel confident about myself that I'm not hiding anything. So let me share um, a little bit about me. I
Yes.
wonder why I wonder why that's an issue for a lot of men. It's almost, you've heard that phrase that sometimes people will only let you see what they want you to see.
Yes. There's
I wonder
there's
how
that.
that. Well, I wonder how that relates to men. Because men in general, and I used to be this way. I'm not this way anymore. Men in general, just they keep everything to themselves. Uh,
Yes.
whereas whereas women are more, open, more expressive. Men just kind of That's why a lot of men are so angry, because
Yes.
they bottle it all up inside, and you keep it in there for so long, you're gonna end up exploding. So,
Yes.
if somebody's watching now, a man that's watching now, and maybe they're not confident, maybe they're scared to share, about I know a lot of people on dating apps, specifically men, they're afraid to share, about their life or their journey. It could be a matter of retaliation. If I tell her the whole truth, will she still like me? I will
Yes.
hope you will elaborate a little bit about that, because I was there at one time, and it was not. I had to face myself. That was the hardest
Yes.
thing to do.
That's, boy, you really hit the nail on the head right there, Henry. Is You touched a lot of subjects, but you had to face yourself. And that's number one. So if anyone, man or woman, is on a dating site and they have not faced themselves and they have not dealt with the things of the past, or they don't even know what to write on their introductory profile, they're not ready to date. Because,
Yeah.
you know, dating, and which we are all as Christians should only be dating because we're looking for our partner in life, our soulmate, our spouse, our Adam, our Eve, our king, our queen, So if we're dating with that in mind, that's, living in close quarters day in and day out. It's going to bring out the worst in ourselves. You're going to touch
Mhm.
triggers. And so if you're not healed, number one, of the past, if you're still bitter about your parents, how your father, mother treated you, you're bitter about your ex, you need to deal with that stuff. And if you can't even write a slight, one paragraph about who you are, you need to know yourself, because how are you going to know who you're looking for? How are you going to recognize your Eve if you don't even know who you are? And so it seems like a lot, and it is, because our society is just coming into that awareness of self-awareness. And for men, really, men have always been the macho, like, the provider, and real men don't cry. And I think the only two emotions that men, can identify with is anger and, like the celebratory team spirit, rah. And other than that, they're like, you know, there's no sadness, like, you just,
Yeah.
get tough and deal with that. But God created us with emotions, and we need to be aware, and we need to be in control of our own emotions. When we make somebody else responsible for our emotions, we're never going to know happiness or freedom. Because how can we, and men are always like, I don't know what women want. I don't know what they're thinking, and
Mhm.
it's true in reverse. Us women are better to be intuitive, because we're the provider. We have to kind of be a step ahead, what's he gonna, what's his mood gonna be like when he walks through the door? We always have our little antennas up, feeling the airwaves so we know how to respond. But that's what's wrong with part of our society, is men had to be the macho men. And then in this last generation, men are being demasculinized, like they're just, put down. They're never good enough. They're always wrong. And so men just, they're like caught in the corner. Like, who am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to act? God created us each beautifully, unique. We're, Psalms 149 says that he formed us in our mother's womb. He knit us together. And in the, I think it's the Amplified, it's either the Amplified or the Passion Translation, says he knit us together and designed us as if we were a beautiful woven tapestry. No, that's pretty unique in a lot of details. But really, our society, everybody wants to be like the Joneses. So everybody's putting on these masks, and people don't know who they are. So that's a basic foundation that I want to lay with my group of men, is having them just get to know themselves. And then once they know who they are, they're going to know better what they like, what they dislike, because we're just not self-aware. And especially if you've come out of a unhealthy relationship where men and women, they kind of mold themselves to meet others' expectations, and you lose your identity, you know. So we need to grow in the knowledge of ourselves, which takes some, there's just simple, do a personality test. There's a few different types out there. That'll help you identify some of your strengths and weaknesses. But I've also found that as I grew in the knowledge of Christ and my Heavenly Father, I grew in the knowledge of myself, because I was seeking knowledge to know my Father, and I was seeking knowledge to know myself. And God called out my identity, who He created me when He formed me in my mother's womb. So once I realized who I was, then I knew better what I wanted.
Yeah, I've seen. I've also seen cases where women will get on these dating sites, or they don't even have to be a dating site. Maybe they just met some good, quote unquote Christian guy, and let's say he knocks her off her feet, saying all the right things, doing all the
Oh
right
yeah.
things,
Oh
but it's
yes.
almost like a front. Um,
Yes.
so I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's hard to identify authenticity, in someone, like, is this person being and sometimes if they're too good, sometimes that woman, not all the time, but sometimes that woman is like, I don't know, because I'm not, goodness is almost perceived as a threat to her because she's been treated like so bad. So
Yes.
what if I even hate to say it, but I know there are dating Christian sites, and I'm not discrediting that, but there has been instances too where the woman ended up, with that man, and while he claims to be a Christian, Bible believing, all these things, later on she finds out, this guy is nothing like he was when I first initially met him. So is that part of what you're trying to convey tonight
Yeah.
here as well, to in regards to that?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Because you touched on it, and I didn't circle back around, but you were saying in your experience too, you were fearful about talking about certain things of your past because how would it be received? And one thing I've
Yeah.
learned in my life, and the scripture says to us, fear is not of God. Okay. So where there's fear, that's a tool of the enemy. And we all have areas in our life that we regret, or we're afraid, wow, if somebody finds this out, they might not like it. So we need to, what I've done is when I recognize that and realize that fear wasn't of God, love is from God. So when we recognize there's fear, and it doesn't matter what type of fear it is, it's a tool of the enemy. And what we bring into the light and is exposed to the light, the enemy cannot use as a tool against us. And the word also says that everything that is hidden will be exposed to the light. So when we try to keep these little secrets that we're like, well, it's in the past, it doesn't matter, the enemy, it's there's a subcurrent of that. You're not going to be fully relaxed. And I've known women too that are the same thing, like, oh, I don't know how to tell him, I'm afraid. But then I know that it's going to come out, and what that breeds is distrust in a relationship, because there's some things that need to be spoken about, um right up front, like right up front, and get it over with, because then you're saving your time, you're saving that person's time, you're avoiding potential heartbreak. And just as an instance, just in the practical, um there's there's a there's STDs. We're all adults, and herpes is a very common one that probably I believe the doctors estimate 50% of the population have. But that's one that is hard too for people to be upfront with. And I had a guy friend, and I hadn't heard from him from some time. And then out of the blue, he contacts me. Well, he had gotten married in, probably it had been 6 months' time that we hadn't talked. He had gotten married, and then he found out from his sister-in-law, his wife's sister, that it just came out in conversation one day that his wife had herpes. She had never
Mm.
told him. And they were married. They'd been married 3 months, and she never bothered to mention it to him. He divorced her because he,
Really?
he,
Wow.
he divorced her because what that did was that created, he couldn't trust her. Well, if she didn't tell me this,
Mm-hmm.
this is important. If she didn't tell me this, what else is there?
What else is she hiding? Yeah.
You know, and so we have to be open and upfront. Now, on day one, if she would have just been bold and said, I have something you need to know, and it's an uncomfortable conversation, yes, but it saves. Now, they had to go through a divorce and heartbreak, but if on day one she would have presented that fact to him, he could have said, I'm out, good luck, I wish you well, or whatever. We're so afraid of hearing no. We're so afraid of rejection that we open ourselves up to a greater rejection by trying to avoid rejection. And on the other hand, he may have also have said, cool, how can we navigate with this? Tell me more, and so it doesn't always mean, but it gives that person a choice. You are remaining. This is this is this is how you stay confident and how you stay powerful. Is you're not tiptoeing and hiding certain areas that you always have to be on guard. You lay it out right there in the beginning, like those types of things, STDs, past abuse. I mean, we want to just have a good time and and um, like and get that person to like us. And in my dating experience, I'm very open, and I would like lay it out in the first few days. These are some issues that you need to be aware of in my life. This is my background. And men were always like, wow, you're so open and honest. Like, it impressed them because it's not normal in our culture. But I was like, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time, because these things will eventually come out, and it takes a lot of energy to guard these secrets. And
Yeah.
you cannot be your authentic self when you're always on guard, because
Yeah.
it takes so much energy to be on guard and alert, that fight or flight mode. And that's what we are putting ourselves in, where if we can just be more, we shouldn't have to live in a defensive mode. We should be able to live in a relaxed state of mind. And so let's get these hard issues out of the way. Let's sit down and talk about them. And then you can both say, hey, like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. Or that's like, some things like men are like, that's nothing, that's no big deal. Or like, hey, I have the same experience. Or maybe the man has herpes too, and he's like, great, like, now we don't have to worry about it. So the enemy just takes these little things and uh, uses them to control us. Where then once they're out in the open, we're free, we're powerful, we can move, we can say, we can talk, we can be authentic, and we're saving ourselves time and respecting our own time and other people's time by just dealing with the hard things first. And then, if they're not in agreement, go on next, you know,
Yeah.
and that's, I mean, it really is, we're shopping.
That's what it is. And a lot of people are so against that. They're like, I said, that's what dating is. That doesn't mean that you're like committed to like one person, so to speak. It doesn't always mean that you're sleeping around with everybody.
Right.
A date could be let's let's get to know each other. Let's see where it goes. And if they're not your cup of tea, or like you said, maybe they reveal something that you're like, I don't know. I mean, there are some people out there that are very good at hiding things. You talked about sometimes it
Yeah.
could be fear of rejection,
Yes.
and things like that. I think it's very important. It's almost like liberating. I've been there myself as a man. I've been in relationships in the past where I was like, if I tell her this about my past, or whether that's
Hmm.
trauma or whatever that is, will she be receptive? Will she stay? Because I'm already hurt by what these other
Took
women
place.
did to me. So if I tell her this, I feel like, will she add to that hurt by leaving me? So you're telling me to be real. You're telling me to be honest. You're telling me to throw it out all out on the table. But if I do that, you know, there's going to be some consequences. So I can see both sides where, well, like you said, well, that's a man or a woman. They just like, I'd rather just keep it all to myself. But like you said, doing that is going to make matters worse later. Whether
Right.
you tell them in the span of a few days, or even if you have the intent, like, I don't know if this is a season to tell this person this now. Sometimes in your head, you're thinking all these things. Are they really ready for the truth?
Right.
I like what
But
William Paul Young says. He says the unexposed is the unhealed. So a lot of times, it's almost
yes.
like if you got a wound, it's almost like if you got a deep wound on your arm. You're not gonna go get a band-aid and cover it up. You're gonna go to the doctor. You're gonna get a treatment. And I think that's what a lot of men are doing. They're going from relationship to relationship, marriage to marriage, with all this baggage that they're not talking about, thinking that, okay, this is the new phase of my life. This is my new wife. This is my new world. And they think that because that's new, that all their problems and all their past trauma and all the things that they don't want to discuss and talk about is new, and it's not. It's
No.
old, but you still need to bring it to the surface, and you still need to talk about it. We have a few more minutes before we say good night. Can you give us some parting words? Maybe elaborate a little bit on what I just said, or what's your encouragement to men as it relates to the mystery of dating? I think it's been a wonderful
Right.
conversation. Also, can you tell people how to connect with you as well?
Yes. So you can find me on Facebook at Shelia Brittsan, and my profile is public. So if you just type in my name, you'll see me there. But the last subject you touched on is so important for men and women. We have to heal from those past hurts and traumas because we repeat, and we you see people just repeat the same pattern. It's a new name, a new face, but it comes out the same. And because until we
Mhm.
deal with that, you know, and so I want to help men on their journey of recognizing if they need to be healing. And sometimes healing is just bringing it to the light. It doesn't mean you have to have years of therapy. And so we need to come into that healed and whole. And we need to talk about the tough things right away, because then we can go forward in freedom and building and not on the defense, because it's hard to build a relationship if you're on defensive and you're hiding that. And we should bring each other freedom, and we should bring each other um, the freedom in being authentic and who they are. When you're well loved, you blossom. And it goes for men and women. And so when a woman is well loved, she's going to respect and love her man back. And they both grow and flourish in that environment. And so I just look forward to meeting different men. It will be a group program that I will launch in March, and there will be ads out there. It'll also be the top post on my Facebook. When you search me, you can find me about that and sign up for that. And I want to see men be confident in how to find the woman and engaging in the dating process.